Good morning. So we are halfway through 2012. We are 6 months from the end of the Mayan calendar, of which much has been prophesized. And they're beginning to call the December 21st the shift. Barbara Marx Hubbard and Jean Houston and Deepak Chopra, a lot of luminaries in our world today have gathered together to call this day a day of shifting in consciousness, of awakening to that. So we're halfway there. I think it's important to stop and look and go, hey, it's June. We're halfway. We're 6 months into 2012. So how's it going for you so far? Good. Yeah. You know, when there is a shift happening in our personal lives or on our planet, we tend to experience stress. Anytime there's a change, even if it's change that we welcome and we want, we resist it sometimes. And, you know, a picture that I have of that is like, you know, the tectonic plates before an earthquake, and they come together and they start pushing on each other, and there's this stress and this tension, and then boom, the landscape changes. And I think that's what's happening for us in consciousness in our evolution right now. There's this pushing and this that's ready to just kind of go. I also see many of the changes that are happening right now in the world as a hearkening back to the 60s. When those of us who have lived through the 60s, remember how many changes there were, how many breakthroughs there were, how much of that energy was happening. And there were breakthroughs in science and civil rights and women's rights and music and technology and the medical field. I mean, there was nothing that was untouched by transformation, by change. And we're in another place like that. We're in another place of change. The thread is being picked up. You know, today is Gay Pride Days, parades all over the country. And in the early 70s, Pride Day began in response to anti-gay discrimination and violence. Now it is a celebration. 1984 in Seattle, 10,000 people attended. Today, expected over 150,000. And that's the kind of change that, you know, we see, and we kind of take it for granted sometimes, like, oh yeah, you know, but the truth is the change that was experienced in the 60s didn't happen easily, didn't happen lightly, and many times did not happen nonviolently, unfortunately. So we're at another crossroads as we were in the 60s. And 2 weeks ago, we had our Unity Conference in Detroit. And the title of the conference was Pulled by a Vision. And so we had many visionaries at the conference speaking about the whole 2012 shift in consciousness. We had Barbara Marx Hubbard, who is a visionary, Jean Houston. We had an integral leadership speaker and workshop, as well as many others. And they're calling again for December 21st to be a day of celebration, a day of honoring and acknowledging the shift. And we at Seattle Unity will be participating in that. I don't know what it looks like at this moment, but we're going to be participating in that event and in that experience. One of the things I think that we are called to do when we're going through changes is to practice our spiritual principles and to be centered instead of reacting, to be in alignment with spirit. I think that what we're seeing is a change and a shift in the outer world reflecting our inner life. And what I see happening in the world is that our inner lives are becoming richer and richer and deeper and deeper. And so we're beginning to see that push out in the outer world in manifestation. Jesus said it, you know, as within, so without, as above, so below. This is not anything new. Jesus referred to it 2,000 years ago as the kingdom of heaven. You know, he said the kingdom of heaven is not coming with signs to be seen, and you won't say it's here or it's there, but rather the kingdom of heaven is in the midst of you. The kingdom of heaven, he says, is like a mustard seed. It's really tiny, but then it grows into this big bush. Or the kingdom of heaven is like leaven that permeates the dough, so that when you bake the bread, it expands. So Jesus' main message 2,000 years ago was about the expansion of one's consciousness, the evolution, if you will, of humankind. One of the things that I liked that Barbara Marx Hubbard said, and she will be here in September, by the way. She's going to be speaking here on a Saturday night in September. Barbara Marx Hubbard was referring to the noosphere, which is a word that Teilhard de Chardin used to describe the thought envelope that encircles the earth. Charles Fillmore probably would have called it race consciousness. We may call it collective consciousness, but it's this thought envelope that surrounds the earth. And one of the things that Barbara Marx Hubbard said about that I found very interesting, she said, you know, we can affect that noosphere more than we have ever been able to throughout history because of our technology today. We have our texting, we have our cell phones to talk on, we have our Facebooks and our emails and our internet, and it's constant and it's fast and it's quick, and there's this constant connection that we're making with each other throughout the globe. So when something happens now, we know about it instantly. We can see it, we can hear it. When Doug was traveling through India, he was posting almost at least weekly, and I felt like I walked through India with him, you know, seeing through his eyes and hearing his stories. That is something new. Remember, I mean, even back 40 years ago, if you took a trip somewhere, maybe I'd get your letter in 2 or 3 months. Maybe you would be back by the time I got your letter. Now it's instantaneous. So the shift is happening. The crossroads we are standing at that crossroads right now. And when things shake up, there is stress. And the first impulse is usually to react, to be offended, maybe to lash out in anger when we're under that stress. And I think we see it in the random shootings around the country and around the world that are happening, that people are they have a hair trigger temper, it's just kind of going off. We see it in the call for freedom that's happening around the world, like in Egypt. It's still like, well, what is this? You know, what's happening? Who won the election? I don't know. You know, it's all just kind of stirred up. And I think that we as true students need to tone it down. So your job in this 2012 shift is to tone it down, to be centered so that your energy, your consciousness, your presence becomes a peaceful atmosphere around which others can touch in. Because the truth is, we are living in an amazing time. We have all the information from all the wisdom teachers throughout the ages. We have it available to us at our fingertips. Yeah? All you got to do is Google something, and there it is. It used to be we had to go off to a monastery or go find the holy teacher, and it's important, of course, to still have the teachers. Of course it is, to be in their presence. But the truth is, we already know all this stuff. We know what to do. We have all the information. What we're called to do now in this shift, in this crossroads, is to live it, is to practice it, is to put feet on our knowledge and to live it in our lives. It reminds me of when I was living in the Yoga Ashram in the 70s, and we had this professor come and stay with us for about a month because he was writing a book. And he knew the 8 limbs of yoga, and he knew the Vedanta, and he knew all of it. He had it down. He was brilliant. And so he would lecture to us in the evenings, and we're like, wow, you really know this stuff. But what was interesting is he didn't practice any of it. In fact, I'm not even sure that he believed any of it. And of course, it's always easy to look at somebody else and go, look what you're saying, but you're not really practicing it. But what was interesting, because people were always coming and going, was during that same visit, this woman came. She was an Ananda Marga nun, this young woman. She was an Ananda Marga nun. Now, Ananda Marga nuns wear the full nun's habit. The only difference is it's bright orange, so you can't miss them. And she would come in, And she would listen, and then she'd say, wow, he really knows all these things. And I'd say, yeah. But the difference was she was living them. She was practicing all of the principles and all of the teachings. And she was having this miraculous life. And it was so interesting because she was going to leave for a couple of weeks, and she didn't have anything. And I said, do you need some money? Do you want me to give you some money? And she said, no, because if the teachings are right, I'm going to be just fine. And I was like, okay, have fun. Head out to Nassau. There you go. And she came back 2 weeks later. I said, how'd it go? She goes, oh, my God. She goes, I no sooner stepped out on the road than a car stopped, and it was these people that I was meant to meet, and it was just one manifestation of a miracle after another in her life. And so we're kind of at that same spot, yeah? Because we could be like the professor and go, hey, yeah, I know I can spout the Vedantas and Buddha's teachings and Jesus's, but to embrace it and to live it is where we are called to be. It's like this story that I heard about parrots. And this is an old ancient story. There were parrots in the forest, and they were being captured by the hunters and put in a net, and then they were sold. So one of the hunters didn't want this to happen anymore, so he took one of the parrots aside, and he said, all right, the hunters will come, they're going to throw their nets, and you need to fly away. The hunters are going to come, they're going to throw their nets, fly away. And he worked with this parrot for a long time, and finally the parrot says, hunter will come, throw his net, fly away. He goes, that's it. So he lets the parrot go, and the parrot starts repeating this, and pretty soon the whole forest of parrots were repeating this. And you'd walk through the forest and you'd hear the hunter will come, throw his nets, fly away. Hunter will come, throw his nets, fly away. And this went on. And so when the hunters came, they walked through the forest and they heard the sound, and they threw their nets, they grabbed all the parrots, and they took them away. And while they're taking them away, you can hear the parrots saying, hunter will come, throw his nets, fly away. Hunter will come, throw his nets. Do you get it? It's what we do sometimes when we're practicing our truth principles or just reciting them, but we're not necessarily living them. The parrots got the words, they knew what to say, but it never translated over into action. It didn't get that far. And that's where we are in our crossroads right now. It can't remain just up here. It has to come fully embodied through our physical beings. It's like the spiritual journey is like taking a trip. You can read the map, you can do all the research, but until you walk or drive it yourself, you don't really know what the road is like, do you? You don't know what the landscape is like. You don't know what's around the corner. So I think we're being called to have that inner life match the outer. And we're living in a time where spiritual practices are like a buffet table. We can pick and choose any single one that we want. Just when we look at solstice events, I know Seattle has a great solstice parade. We're probably known throughout the country for our solstice parade. But I was reading this morning that in Times Square in New York, on the solstice, in 92-degree heat, more than 14,000 people showed up to do an hour and a half of hot yoga. And 92 degrees isn't that hot for Bikram yoga. So imagine 14,000 people on their yoga mats and their little yoga clothes in Times Square doing their yoga practice. And I thought, what a beautiful way to call in the solstice in this 2012. There it is, the spiritual practice that is blessing New York, which is blessing the world. So we have a buffet of spiritual practices to choose from. And the truth is, I don't think one is better than another or right. We're such unique individuals that we need to find that for ourselves. And the truth is, if you're a parent of a young child, that's your spiritual practice. Your spiritual practice is taking care of that child. If you are ill and are healing from an illness, that's your spiritual practice. If you're grieving the loss of someone, that is your spiritual practice. I think that sometimes we can narrow it down, that our spiritual practices can only be a couple of things. And the truth is, it is that which connects us to the wholeness and the oneness of the universe, and that heals us and brings us to consciousness. That is our spiritual practice. And we need it right now to handle the changes and the shift in the tectonic plates of consciousness. Okay, so that said, we are going to practice some of these. I want to do 2 with you today. And in your program, you will see, this is one of my favorite prayers by Yogananda. And I would like, I'm just going to read it, and I'm changing it to perfect spirit to make it non-gender. But what I like about this prayer is that it calls in the light from all sources. And not only does it call in the light from all sources, but it affirms that you are the light as well. Perfect Spirit, thy light is flowing through Christ, through the saints of all religions, through the masters of India, and through me. This divine light is present in all my body parts. I am well. So please stand. And I'd like for us to read it together once, and then I will walk you through it. So I invite you to just really open to the light and open to the Spirit of God that you are. Together. Perfect Spirit, thy light is flowing through Christ, through the saints of all religions, through the masters of India, and through me. This divine light is present in all my body parts. I am well. Now put down your paper. Remain standing. And I'll speak you through it. We're going to do it a couple times. Perfect Spirit, thy light is flowing through Christ.
Perfect Spirit, thy light is flowing through Christ.
Through the saints of all religions.
Through the saints of all religions.
Through the masters of India.
Through the masters of India.
And through me.
And through me.
This divine light is present in all my body parts.
This divine light is present in all my body parts.
I am well.
I am well.
And let's do it again. Perfect Spirit, thy light is flowing through Christ.
Perfect Spirit, thy light is flowing through Christ.
Through the saints of all religions.
Through the saints of all religions.
Through the masters of India.
Through the masters of India.
And through me.
And through me.
This divine light is present in all my body parts.
This divine light is present in all my body parts.
I am well.
I am well.
You may be seated. So we have called in the light. We have aligned ourselves with not only the Spirit of Christ, the light of God, but with the saints, with the masters of India, and you now are that master. You are the master of your life, of bringing the inner world into manifestation in the outer. So our next step, now that we have it in ourselves, is to bring it out into the world and in community. Last night, Louise created for us a great icebreaker, if you will, at our party, where we all had what she called bingo cards, and then there were little things on each one, and we had to find people who fit that. So who's from the Midwest? Who has children? Who's been to more than 10 countries? Who's been to more than 37 states? So it got us walking around and talking to each other and learning new, not only names, but learning different things about each other. And one of the things I noticed at the party last night that I don't know that I've ever seen before is usually when we have a party, we have great parties, but we have our table, right? It's like, this is my table, and this is my table. And what I saw last night was people are like, I don't care whose table it is, I'm going to sit here. Or people getting up and mingling and moving around from table to table to table, and it felt like true community. It really felt wonderful. It was amazing. So thank you, Louise, for that workshop. Not workshop, but for that icebreaker. So we've just called in the light, and we do community in different ways. We socialize, we party, we hang out, we visit. But what we're doing here is a different kind of community, and that is the willingness to see beyond the outer appearance into the soul and spirit of each other. So the next part of this is to take that there. And so Barbara, if you'll bring the mic, this is what I would like us to do. And that is we're going to look and see the Spirit of God in each other. And then when we feel like we're in that place, I am going to say, I am here to be seen. And then when Barbara sees, not Karen, but the Christ Karen, she'll say, I see you. And then we'll change.
And I invite you to know the first person's first name. Okay.
I am here to be seen.
I see you, Karen. I am here to be seen.
I see you, Barbara. Now it's your turn. So I invite you to stand up, and of course you're always free not to do any of this, you could just stay, but turn to somebody, and if you don't have somebody to turn to and you want somebody, raise your hand so you can find somebody. Who needs a partner? We have someone in the middle who needs a partner. All right, introduce yourselves if you haven't. And then take a moment to connect with each other at a soul level. And remember, you say, I am here to be seen, and the other person says, I see you. But after you make that connection, go. And now do it with one other person. Find one other partner. Thank your partner and have a seat. So we're at the halfway mark of 2012. We are in a stress point, really. The tectonic plates of consciousness are so that something new, a new landscape can be born. I think that we're called to be seen and to see. I think we're called to be centered and still. The kingdom of heaven is in the midst of each one of us, and it is expanding. We have the map. Now we need to walk the walk. We have all the information, we have all the knowledge, we have all the wisdom at our fingertips. We have the saints and the masters and our Spirit of God within and moving through us. So as we take that map and we look at it, at this crossroads, Let us walk it together in community. Amen.